When you hear of Africa, what comes into mind? Is it the continent with majority of its population living below the poverty belt, or the continent that has the most mineral reserves in the world? In these two video series, we will be looking at both sides of the coin. Firstly, we will look at how endowed the African continent is by considering a couple of resources and their impact on the rest of the world. Then, in the final video of this series, we will connect some dots to identify how and why Africa sits on resources worth multi-trillion dollars, yet it is considered the poorest continent in the world. Without much ado, let's begin with the first part of the series. How endowed is the African continent? This is Bernard, and you are watching African Dream Motivation. Without wasting much time, let's begin. According to the United Nations Environmental Programme, UNEP, Africa holds over 30% of the world's mineral reserves. This makes Africa the continent with the most resources in the world. That is more than Asia, Europe, North America, South America, Oceania, and Antarctica. In fact, Africa ranks first in the quantity of world reserves of bauxite, cobalt, industrial diamond, phosphate rock, platinum group metals, and many more. Africa is home to 12% of the world's oil and 8% of the world's natural gas reserves. Let's look at some categories of resources Africa has. Metals and minerals. In 2019, the continent of Africa produced almost 1 billion tons of minerals worth $460 billion. Below are some of the minerals produced in Africa and how Africa is topping the chart in terms of production and world supply. Gold. According to the United Nations Environmental Programme, the African continent holds 40% of the world's gold. As of 2021, there are more than 21 African countries mining gold. In 2019, Ghana mined more than 142 metric tons of gold, making it the leading gold producing country in Africa. South Africa came second with 118.2 tons. Sudan came next with 76.6 tons. Mali was fourth with 71.1 tons, and fifth position was taken by Burkina Faso with 62 metric tons, and the list goes on and on. Diamond. Diamond is one of the most valuable metals in the world. In Africa, it is mined in more than 15 countries. As of 2022, the diamond industry contributed to over $8 billion to the African economy. This makes Africa the world's top producer of diamonds. About 47% of the world's diamonds come from sub-Saharan Africa. Botswana sits at the top, leading diamond production with about 3/4 of its export revenue coming from diamond alone. In 2020, Botswana was the second behind Russia in world diamond production, followed by Angola, which is ranked number 4 behind Canada. Then South Africa followed, with Democratic Republic of Congo taking the 6th place, followed by Namibia, then Lesotho, and finally Tanzania occupies the 10th position. Looking at the top 10 countries on the list, there are 7 African countries in there, demonstrating Africa's dominance in diamond production. Cobalt. As the world is moving towards the use of green energy, the precious metal, cobalt, is on high demand. Cobalt is a very important element in the electric car evolution. The most important thing about electric cars is their batteries. The more expensive they are, the more the actual car becomes. According to NS Energy, in 2021, about 70% of the world's cobalt production came from the Democratic Republic of Congo. DR Congo mined 120,000 tons of cobalt, and the only country that came closer was Russia, which mined 7,600 tons. Madagascar is also among the top 10 cobalt producing countries in the world, after producing 2,500 tons in 2021. Bauxite. Bauxite is a precious metal that is mainly used in aluminium production. A recent finding revealed that at least 1/3 of the world's proven bauxite reserve can be found in just 3 African countries, and that is Ghana, Sierra Leone, and Guinea. According to Statistica.com, Africa produced over 89.5 million metric tons of bauxite in 2021. Out of that, Guinea was by far the largest producer, having produced 87.4 metric tons, making the country one of the leading bauxite producers in the entire world, coming third to China and Australia. Countries like Mozambique, Cameroon, Nigeria, Tanzania, and South Africa also have bauxite reserves, which signifies the rich land of Africa. Africa produces so many precious minerals and metals which are used for diverse purposes around the world. More than half of mobile phone components are made from precious metals mined in Africa. For instance, lithium and cobalt are very vital in producing the batteries of mobile phones and electric vehicles. Over 80% of the world cobalt production comes from Africa. And to a more revealing metric, 70% of the world's cobalt production comes from just Democratic Republic of Congo. This shows that the African continent is highly endowed with precious minerals and metals. Oil and natural gas. Oil production in Africa has seen an industry that is welcoming new countries almost every single year. Its exploration has led to the situation where many African countries are looking forward to becoming first-time producers after discovering huge reserves. According to Investopedia, Africa is home to 5 of the top 30 oil-producing countries in the world. There are more than 18 countries producing oil in Africa, making oil production a major resource of the continent. As of 2022, Nigeria sits at the top as the leading oil-producing country in Africa, followed by Angola, Algeria, Libya, and Egypt. Many other African countries are also developing their oil industries and making it highly attractive. Also, the rise of natural gas production in Africa has been tremendous. In 2020, the African continent generated 231 billion cubic metric of natural gas. A research done by Statistica.com revealed that natural gas reserves in Africa totaled over 620 trillion cubic feet in 2021, with Nigeria housing the largest reserve on the continent. Agriculture. The agricultural industry in Africa is the most economic activity on the continent. It employs 2/3 of the continent's working population, and in most countries contributes to as high as 60% of their gross domestic product. Also, the African continent contributes to 60% of the world's uncultivated arable land. Africa is leading the production of so many cash crops around the world. In 2019, Africa produced 192.1 million tons of cassava. This occupies 63% of the world's production. Also, the continent produced 72.4 million tons of yam, representing 97% of world production. 28.6 million tons of sorghum, representing 49% of world production. Africa again produced 27.9 million tons of sweet potato, which also represent 30% of world production. There were also production of 26.7 million tons of plantain, which occupied 60% of total production. The continent also produced 48% of the world's millet production. And the list goes on and on and on. This simply describes the production capacity the continent has. Another cash crop the world depends on greatly is cocoa. As high as 77% of world cocoa production comes from Africa. Let's take a brief look at cocoa production in Africa. Every year, over 4 million tons of cocoa beans are produced around the world. 70% of the production is from West Africa. Côte d'Ivoire is the leading cocoa producing country in the world, with her sister country Ghana taking the second spot on the world list. Just these two countries account for 60% of global cocoa production, followed by Ecuador, which produces only 7%. Countries like Nigeria, Cameroon, and Uganda also produce cocoa and are doing quite well. Fisheries. Fisheries are one of the most important aspects of human life from time immemorial. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations have a statistics that shows that fishing industries and aquaculture provide direct and indirect employment to over 500 million people in developing countries. Africa's inland fisheries contains more than 3,000 fish species, and this accounts to 2/3 of the global inland fish production. According to the National Geographic Resource Library, Lake Victoria is the most productive freshwater fishery in the world, producing more than 500,000 tons of fishes, which is worth $600 million every year. This shows that when it comes to fishing, Africa is clearly endowed too. Conclusion. According to the United Nations Environmental Programme, Africa is home to some 30% of the world's mineral reserves, 8% of the world's natural gas, and 12% of the world's oil reserves. The continent has 40% of the world's gold and up to 90% of its chromium and platinum. The African continent again has the largest reserves of cobalt, diamond, chromium and platinum, and many others. Africa holds 65% of the world's arable land and 10% of the planet's internal renewable fresh water source. All these demonstrate how rich the African continent is. But looking at how successful continents like America, Europe, and Asia are with just little resources, you are then tempted to ask why Africa is so endowed with many minerals and natural resources, yet most of its citizens live a very poor life. This brings us to the second part of this series, where we go deep into this topic. Kindly click on the card above or the first link in the description or comment section to watch the continuation and final video about how millions of Africans are still living a poor life, irrespective of how rich and endowed the continent is. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. If you liked it, kindly give it a thumbs up. And if you are new here, don't forget to subscribe and click on the notification bell so that you don't miss any new video we upload. Until we meet again in another video, have a wonderful day.